Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the ULCT Town Hall for Local Leaders. My name is Wayne Bradshaw. I'm the Policy Director for the League of Cities and Towns. In today's Town Hall, we'll be discussing the distribution of the American Rescue Plan funds to non-entitlement cities and towns, or ARPA, as some people call it, and discussing standards Treasury has placed using ARPA funds on water and sewer projects. Just a few housekeeping items. Please place any questions or comments in the chat box and include those comments to all presenters and attendees. Only including to presenters means the attendees will not see the questions and potentially not understand the context when you make those comments. So please include everyone in your questions and comments. The League will be placing all PowerPoint presentations on our website at ulct.org under Membership Services and the COVID-19 tab. To kick off the presentations, we'll first hear from the Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, Sophia, DiCaro, and members of her team, Taylor Kaufman and Katie Miner. Her office is tasked with the distribution of ARPA dollar funds to non-entitlement units of government. After their presentations, we'll hear from the Director of Water Quality, Erica Gaddis, and the Director of Drinking Water, Tim Davis, to discuss the standards and resources available to you as you consider using ARPA funds for water and sewer projects in your communities. So I'd like to say welcome to our panelists and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule today to participate in this town hall. I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Sophia and her team for the next 30 minutes as you update us on ARPA distribution funding.
Great, thank you, Wayne. And I just want to express our sincerest gratitude to the Utah League of Cities and Towns for letting us present this today. And also to you, Wayne. Start by introducing our team. You mentioned Taylor Kaufman. He will be co-presenting today and will walk everyone through how to obtain the funding that we'll be talking about today. And a special thanks also to Katie Miner, our Public Information Officer, who will be communicating a lot of information that we'll be presenting today. And then I'd like to introduce Sarah Wright. This is her first day on the job, and we're excited to have her join us. She will be helping to administer a local match program that we'll talk about a little bit later as well. People you're not seeing right now is Nate Talley and Duncan Evans, who are also on the call. Nate is our chief economist and deputy director, and then Duncan Evans is also on our federal funds team and is a managing director for budget and operations. But this is essentially the team you'll be interfacing with when navigating through how to obtain the funds and the parameters that are in place that flow through the state. So with that, go ahead and put the presentation up if you would, and we'll get started. Okay, great. Go ahead and advance to the first slide. Okay, so the Treasury has now released $93 million to the state of Utah for distribution. This money will be distributed to what we're calling non-entitled units of local government in Utah. There's 237 local entities that are classified as NEUs, and these are generally localities that have a population of less than 50,000 people. Counties and 16 metropolitan cities, which are basically cities that have more than 50,000 people, they will receive their funds directly from the Treasury, and those entities can request funds from the Treasury right now. So what we're going to be walking you through is primarily how to obtain the funding through our office if you are a city or town with fewer than 50,000 people. So local entities will receive the funds in 2 equal tranches. The first tranche is available now. And again, whether you're an NEU or not an NEU, that will come from the Treasury, but the first tranche is available now. The second tranche will be available later in about a year from now. Okay, next slide. Okay, and I know this is hard to see, but it is available online as well. But the allocations have been predetermined by the US Treasury, and they can be found on our website. We've posted it on our website, and it's gopb.utah.gov. We cannot change these allocations. These are set forth in advance. And so we must stick with the numbers that you see on that list, but that will let you know how much money is available to your local entity. And again, remember that half of that allocation that's shown on this list will be available this year, and the rest will be available next year. So now we're going to talk about how to get that allocation from our office. And I'll go ahead and now turn the time over to Taylor, who will walk you through that process.
Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate that. So many of you are aware, or hopefully all of you are aware, that this is now available to all entities, the NAUs in Utah. Last Monday, I sent out an email, Monday or Tuesday, now I'm forgetting already. Monday or Tuesday, I sent out an email to all local governments announcing that these funds are available with a link to this form. This is a request for payment form. It's a little bit different than the CARES Act agreement. The last time that agreement that you signed was with us, the state of Utah and the governor's office of planning and budget. This time we're more of a facilitator, have more of a facilitator role, and we have created this request for payment form that's available on our website, gopb.utah.gov. There's a COVID-19 materials tab, and it's right there at the top of the page. As I said, I also emailed out a link to this form as well. A couple of things to note, this needs to be signed by an authorized representative from each entity that has legal authority to bind the government entity. This first page here that you're seeing is kind of some information. There's 2 pages of information and then 1 page of recipient information that we are required to collect from you. And then attached to that is also terms and conditions set by the US Treasury, as well as an assurance of compliance with civil rights. Those are the 2 signatures that you're required to make to provide for the Treasury before receiving these funds. And lastly, just wanted to talk about how one of the things that's required here is that you need to provide a DUNS number, which hopefully everyone before I emailed out all the contact list that I knew and worked with the league as well to notify everyone that they needed a DUNS number, an active DUNS number in order to apply for these funds. It's not required to have an active sam.gov registration while applying for the funds, although the Treasury says you need to do that before the first report that's due in October. So for the DUNS number, please have an active one, make sure that it's active. I've already began processing a few of these requests. We've received about 60 so far. In some cases, well, with each form that comes in, I verify to make sure that that DUNS number is an active number. In some cases, my search on sam.gov is not able to show that it's active or inactive. I've been notified that in the profile page for your DUNS number, you can select an option that allows to authorize your entity's non-sensitive information to be made public on sam.gov. That way I can go in on kind of a public search on sam.gov, verify that your number is active. So if you receive an email from me saying, you know, I can't find your DUNS number, it's possible you need to adjust that option in your profile so that that can be viewed publicly. So from, I already mentioned I've received about 60 so far. I'm working on processing those as I work through and make sure that it's complete and that I can verify the information. Then I'm working with the Treasurer's office to begin having those payments made, hopefully starting this week. So next slide, Katie. Also in this form, one of the most important parts here is providing a budget amount. So in the actual American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, it provides that there's a funding cap to NAUs, that the allocation provided to an NAU is not allowed to be 75% more than the most recent operating budget as of January 27, 2020. So this likely is going to be your 2020 budget that was in effect as of that date. You need to provide the total operating, including general fund and other funds. Unfortunately, this is the only definition that the Treasury has given us. They haven't provided additional detail of, well, what does that mean? What other funds are included or not included? So this is what we've received from Treasury. We request that you respond to that, provide the total budget for that year or whatever was in effect for that January 27th, 2020. And then you can either provide a link to that budget from the state auditor's website, as you are all required anyway to submit your budgets and other financial documents to the state auditor. The easiest thing for you would just be go find your page, then paste the link right here in 5AI. If that's not available, you are welcome to provide a PDF copy of the budget, but you don't have to provide both. It's one or the other, preferably the link. That's easiest to go from. Next slide. All right, so just one thing I wanted to mention, I've already had a few reach out to me and contact me about how do I know if I want these funds? What if I don't want them? You know, how much time do I have to kind of make the decision? So there's a couple options. Of course, you can accept these funds. These are allocated for your entity. You have there's a 30-day window that the Treasury wants us to provide these funds to you within this 30 days, which would be, I think we put in the form, it was July 21st. We require a response by then. After that, there's kind of another 30 days where I'm going to be working diligently to contact those that haven't responded yet. And after 60 days, those funds will be reallocated to all the other responsive NEUs. However, if you respond to me, but you decide you don't want the funds, the Treasury has indicated they will provide a form to us. I keep checking every day at the website. It's not available yet. But the Treasury will make a form available where you can fill out the form that essentially states that you are not accepting the funds and you would prefer to transfer them to the state of Utah. Those funds can then be kept by the state. We don't have to transfer them to you to have you turn around and transfer them back to us. Essentially, you're signing over the funds to the state for the state's use. So there's that option. The other option is that you can take the funds and transfer them, either all or a portion of the funds, to other special units of local government. This could be your county, a special district, or school districts. You have the authority to share these funds with these other government entities. For example, a special unit, a water district, they don't have an allocation by themselves. These allocations only go to municipal governments. So you can share those. However, it's important to realize that you are still responsible for those funds, for reporting on those funds. The Treasury will still view you as the recipient of those funds, and that you have to then turn around and report to the Treasury on what you did with the funds. Even if you transferred all of them to a county or a special district, you would still need to report to the Treasury that you accepted the funds and that what you did with them, and you need to monitor that subrecipient that you transferred to. So those are the two options. Feel free to call me. We can talk through the options here. Once I have the form made available from the Treasury that allows you to transfer the funds to the state, I will send out an email so that you're aware of that process. But until then, feel free to reach out to me with questions you have. One last thing, just wanted to comment. Oh, go ahead, Katie, on the next slide. This last thing, commenting about resources that are out there. In my email, I provided links to these resources, as well as the form itself. The request form has links to these resources, and we've linked them here in these slides. But I really encourage all of you to start with the fact sheet. This is an 8-page document that gives a great summary of these funds, what can be used with them, and a broad overview of how these funds are meant to be used. And that's a great place to start as you contemplate projects that you might want to do with these funds. Review that, begin to formulate your understanding of how your projects could fit within the eligible uses. The FAQ document is regularly updated. They've already provided, I believe, in the last 6 weeks that it's been out. I think it's been updated 4 or 5 times. So they're regularly updating and providing guidance for continued questions that flow into the Treasury. So that's a great resource as well. Finally, from the Treasury, there's a compliance and reporting guidance. This came out probably about 2 weeks ago. It's a great resource that, although it can be complicated and overwhelming to review, it's great to get a feel for what you're getting into as you accept these funds. What's required from you on compliance, what's required from you on reporting. For example, when you accept the funds, a report, there's an annual report that will be due to the Treasury on October 31st of each year. This document explains what is in that report and what's the requirements from NEUs. So review those documents, be familiar with them, reach out to me. I know the League is willing and ready to help, and will continue to provide things like this, the town halls, where we can work together on sharing resources and helping each other through this. Finally, from our website, gopb.utah.gov, we've just today released an updated FAQ. We've tried not to replicate what's already in the Treasury, but these are frequently asked questions to the state on our process. That also has the link to all the allocations for local governments, the NEUs, the counties, and the metropolitan cities. So there's lots of resources. We want to be of help. And happy to help answer questions at the end. And I'm going to turn it over to Sophia. Oh, go ahead.
Taylor, can I interrupt really quickly? So
yeah.
Treasury has been hosting town halls of their own on the reporting guidance. They have not done one for NEUs yet, but they plan on doing one, and we will send to everyone in our email distribution when that is planned, and you can register for that, and then we'll also make the recording available. So there will be additional resources from Treasury for NEUs on reporting. Just wanted to call that out.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I know accepting these funds provides an administrative burden for each of you as you work through how to use the funds, as well as how to comply with reporting requirements. But there's lots of resources out there. The Treasury is trying to provide some. We're here. The League is here. So and any feedback that you can provide to us on how we can be of help would be good as well. So I want to turn it back over to Sophia. She can review some last things, including the matching grant program that we're beginning to set up.
Great. And it looks like we have a question in the comments as well. Do all counties get their allocations directly from the Treasury? Yes, they do. And can they allocate their funds to special districts? Taylor might jump in for the technicalities of what it means to allocate funds. Taylor, I'm going to turn that to you to answer.
Yeah, so they can share. They have the same transfer authority. The state, the counties, the metropolitan cities, and NEUs all have this transfer authority that they can transfer funds to units of special government, such as special districts. Yeah, as far as technicalities of allocating, I think that would involve transferring the funds, providing them funds, and that county or NEU is still responsible to report on the transfer of those funds to a special district.
Great, thank you, Justin, for the question. And please, if you have questions along the way, go ahead and put them in the comment box as Justin did, and we'll try to answer that along the way as well. But reach out. I encourage you to reach out to Taylor if you have any other questions that come up later. Taylor or someone from our team can put in the contact information in the chat box. Now, we know that a lot of you are considering how you are planning to use this money, and we wanted to make sure to bring to your attention a grant program that was passed in the special session. As you start thinking about how to allocate, it's important that you're aware of this grant program. This is the Local Assistance Matching Program. It was HB 1004 of the last special session, which is sponsored by Mike Schultz, Representative Mike Schultz. But it's a local matching program with the state allocation of ARPA money. So the allocation going directly to the state of Utah entity. The legislature appropriated $50 million to the governor's office of planning and budget for the purpose of matching with local governments for certain things. So for example, the 4 categories that are outlined in the bill is to match affordable housing or homeless projects, anything that's related to COVID-19 public health challenges, water and sewer infrastructure, and then there's other allowable uses under ARPA, which is a broad capture. But the idea is for the state to leverage some of the resources that the state plans on allocating for these purposes, and matching that with the local entities and encourage some activities where we can work together on addressing some of these challenges. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So some of the details related to this, I mentioned earlier, we onboarded Sarah Wright, who will be helping us administer this local match program. We will create a portal where applications will be made online. So we'll collect that electronically. We have a selection committee that's outlined in statute. And the decision on how to allocate those funds and the criteria, all of that is being developed right now. And we welcome the opportunity to come back to this audience and outline the details of some of that, what the criteria is going to be, what the process will be. We would love to be able to come back and outline that. So local entities, we encourage you to work together on projects that might have cross-jurisdictional issues, especially think of water, think of those types of things where there's a shared interest to maybe match your funds collectively and work together to come up with a joint application to apply for some of these matching funds. We want you to work together now so that you're prepared for your city to have these funds set aside. We also want you to work with the counties. If you have the ability to do that, it would be great for you to work with other cities and your county perhaps. And we want you to be able to leverage those dollars to really make an impact and move the needle on some of these things. So we are engaging the planning organizations, AOGs, Associations of Governments, to help facilitate some of that coordination. The Wasatch Front Regional Council and others, they're willing to help with these types of collaborations that are needed. And again, more details on this will come out later, but we just want to give you a heads up. This is kind of the approach we're taking. We want you to start engaging with one another and encourage you to come up with a joint application, which again, the AOGs will help facilitate. And go ahead and move to the next slide. And as you're thinking through what investments you want to make and where we can actually move the needle, I wanted to just share with you what the state lens will be as we're thinking through how to invest these ARPA dollars. We're thinking that we are going to be prioritizing these guiding principles, and that's fiscal prudence. Right, we want to uphold a reputation for return on investment. We want to not use one-time money for ongoing projects. So we want to avoid any structural issues with budgetary with the budget in the future. We want these investments to be as proactive as possible. So where we can meet an existing challenge, but enhance something in an innovative ways, we want it to be like proactive. We also want it to be targeted people and industries and locations that continue to suffer the greatest impact. We want to look at those types of things and also have it be enduring. So where can we solve some problems that will provide an enduring benefit? If you can think of the last Olympics and how the state of Utah was proactive and had enduring infrastructure that we use today. That's the kind of thinking we want to encourage. And then also to be accountable. I mentioned in the last meeting that we presented, and that the state auditor's office will still have the duty to play that role in auditing locals, and that will still exist under the existing framework. And so keep that in mind as you think about how you want to set these funds up. You want to make sure that you're treating these ARPA dollars different than your CARES Act dollars, for example, and tracking that separately, since they'll have different requirements. But these are the things that the state is going to be thinking about with the investment dollars the state has, and what things that we want to encourage you all to be thinking about as you work together to perhaps leverage the dollars you have and partner with the state on some of these things. It looks like we have some questions coming in here. Let's see. And I don't know, Wayne, if you want to help.
Yeah, so one of the first questions that came in is kind of the timeline of what you're thinking on the grant program. Can you just kind of run through that timeline?
Yes, thank you. So again, we just onboarded Sarah. We're meeting this week to discuss some of those details. We do think this is going to happen very rapidly. We need to bring back applications have decisions made in the fall. And what we're envisioning is having an open process so we can have some visibility into what the locals are prioritizing. And then we'll bring that back and then decide, what existing programs might be out there to help with some of these applications, or, we potentially think this 50 could lead to more perhaps later, depending on what types of applications come back. But the process will help us have some visibility into your priorities. So again, July, we will plan to come back with more details on this. We do anticipate having it be a quick turnaround, and we will be engaging the AOGs to help facilitate that.
Thanks. So can you speak a little bit about, there was a question about timing of distribution. So if you're looking at your budget, when can they anticipate getting, if they win the grant, when will they get the funds?
Go ahead, Taylor.
Well, the funds are available. The legislature allows us to use these funds through December of 2024, which is kind of the deadline to use these funds, or at least allocate them. So we will begin, as Sophia has mentioned, we'll begin to take applications likely in the fall. And then it would be a continuous process, I would assume. As we've mentioned, this is still in the works, but those will continue to receive applications and make or provide the grants after that. But the funds are made available by the legislature for use of this program through December of 2024.
Two more questions, if you guys still have time. One of the questions, and Taylor, you touched on this in a response, but a lot of them are asking about the matching component. One, can they use their ARPA funding? And number two, does it need to be a dollar for dollar match, or can they bring a community-wide project and say they only can pay 25% with all of their ARPA dollars? Could they ask for the 75% from the grant?
Yeah, so yes, you can match with ARPA funds, and Taylor is so great to be replying to some of these along the way. I'm just noticing now. Yes, you can match with ARPA dollars. The details on the match, the level, all of that is being formulated now. So we're not prepared to announce all of that now, but we would love the opportunity to come back to this group and provide all the details on the hows and the whens in a future forum. And I just want to thank Miranda Jones-Cox. She had commented in here as well, and Andrew Gruber from Wasatch Front Regional Council. Feel free to reach out to them as you start figuring out how to leverage with one another and start coordinating with one another.
And I think one more question. So a lot of the questions we're getting in the chat box are specifics about some of the requirements or scoring process. And as Sophia said, we will certainly bring more details as this grant program is rolled out. but there is a question about who's on the selection committee. Do you want to touch on that just shortly?
Sure. Yes. So there's 5 of us. There's myself. There is a representative from the Utah League of Cities and Towns, a representative from the Utah Association of Counties, a representative from the Senate, and a representative from the House. And that is itemized in statute.
Correct. Well, Sophia and Taylor and Katie, I want to thank you for your time this morning. This has been very informative, and we look forward to continue to work with you on the distribution of these funds, as well as the grant programs and other information. So thank you for your time, and we'll collect these questions. And if there are questions in the chat box that we want to follow up with your team, we'll do that later today.
Great. All right. Thank you very much.
So next, we're going to bring in Erica Gaddis and Tim Davis. They're both with the EQ. Erica is the Division Director for Water Quality, and Tim is the Director for Drinking Water. As you know, in the Treasury Guidance on how you can spend these funds, they pull definitions and resources from other parts of the federal government to say this is the guidance, or this is the information you should use when making decisions about how you spend these funds. And so when Congress said you can spend it on water and sewer, Treasury says you should look to the revolving funds or the standards that EPA has put in place for their revolving funds. In the guidance, I would refer you to pages 63 through 68, and I'll link that guidance in the chat box if you are thinking about a water or sewer project. But Erica and Tim have joined us today to talk a little more in detail and resources that they'll have available to your communities if you're going to pursue a water or sewer project. So first, I'll turn it over to Erica Gaddis.
Great, thanks, Wayne. Are you able to see my screen all right?
Yes, so we are seeing it as your PowerPoint. We're not seeing it as a, we're seeing all of your slides as well. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go for the first slide with that because I have my notes on the computer and it's covering them up. So thank you for the opportunity to present today on sewer and water eligibilities for ARPA funds. I'd like to just go through a couple key points from the Treasury Guidance, and then talk a little bit more about the types of projects that you might want to think about for the funds that you have available to you through ARPA. So the interim final rule, which is not yet finalized, has identified a number of elements of water and sewer projects. They should be necessary, high quality, and high priority. And the guidance does define those terms somewhat. So necessary investments should be those that are designed to provide an adequate minimum level of service and are unlikely to be made using private sources of funds. High quality projects should be carried out in ways that produce high quality infrastructure and avert disruptive, costly delays and promote efficiency. And then there's a number of priorities identified in ARPA in the guidance from Treasury, including insurance of compliance with applicable health and environmental safety requirements, addressing the most serious risks to human health, and assisting systems most in need on a per household basis according to state affordability criteria. We maintain, the Water Quality Board maintains affordability criteria for water quality projects. We're happy to help you walk through those. They were actually just updated finally after a 6-month effort last week by the Water Quality Board. And then just in terms of timeline, as you're thinking about projects, we understand that the funds must be obligated by the end of 2024, but they don't need to be spent until the end of 2026. So Wayne, are you seeing the right version there?
So we are seeing it in a kind of in your presenter mode. So if you want to, there we go.
There we go.
Perfect, thank you.
So the Treasury Guidance has clearly stated that the water and sewer projects are any projects that would otherwise be eligible under the Clean Water or Drinking Water State Revolving Fund programs. The Water Quality Board and the Division of Water Quality manage the Clean Water SRF for the state of Utah. And generally that program is a tool that states use to finance projects to achieve water quality and public health objectives in accordance with the Clean Water Act. So I'm just going to start giving you some examples of what kinds of projects are typically funded through Clean Water SRF, and these are the kinds of projects that would be eligible for ARPA funds. So I'm going to spend some time here and happy to answer questions. First, the construction of publicly owned treatment works. So these would be any new or upgraded wastewater treatment plants, as well as the sewer that goes along with those facilities. Non-point source pollution management are any projects that would be eligible under Clean Water Act 319. So these could include agricultural best management practices. They could include cleanup of any source of pollution that is not regulated. Be happy to talk to you about that. And we do maintain a state non-point source management plan. And the Treasury Guidance indicates that projects should be in line with that state plan. So I'm happy to point people to that if that's an area of interest. Decentralized wastewater treatment systems, these would be underground, on-site systems, septic tanks, large underground septic systems would qualify. Stormwater systems with the caveat that they have to have a water quality benefit. So this fund projects for flood control would not be eligible. But if you have a stormwater project that provides both water quality benefit and flood control, that could be eligible. There are water conservation provisions that are eligible, generally to reduce capacity at our publicly owned treatment works. There's a whole category of watershed pilot projects, and those can include anything from stormwater BMPs, kind of demonstration projects, agricultural projects, integrated water resource management planning. Energy efficiency measures for publicly owned treatment works as well would be eligible. Water reuse projects, any security measures at our publicly owned treatment works to protect against cyber threats or other security threats. Technical assistance for Clean Water Act compliance. And then any of the planning and engineering associated with any of the capital projects listed here would also be considered eligible. In terms of what would not be eligible under Clean Water SRF, private development projects. So there's a fine line between development and growth. You can use these funds for generally preparing a community for growth, but not for private development. The funds are generally not appropriate for operation and maintenance costs, which is in line with what you heard from the governor's office. Treasury has been very clear that deposits into rainy day funds are ineligible. Spending on infrastructure other than those that have been identified through these revolving loan fund eligibilities, and the costs cannot be incurred prior to March 3rd of 2021. I just want to let you all know that we are.
Erica,
yeah.
Sorry, Erica. Yeah. There was a question from Margaret Smith about would these funds include studies specifically in aquifer hydrology, septic system density?
Yes.
Okay.
Septic density studies would be a great use. Yep.
Okay. This is from Evan Barrett. Would the cost of land acquisition for construction of the treatment facilities qualify? So I guess that's a question under, would the loan program allow that?
Typically, yes. If it is to purchase land for a treatment plant itself, that is an eligible use. We've done that in a few cases. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just do one more question, and then we can take a few more questions at the end if there's time. Would the above ground water tank for rural water use qualify for eligibility?
Most likely, I'll let Tim answer that. Oh. That would be on the water.
Yeah, I teed that one up for when I talk.
Okay. Okay, we'll go back. Sorry, Erica, we'll just let you keep going.
No, this is my last slide. I just want to let everyone know that DEQ is maintaining a comprehensive list of known ARPA projects, eligible projects in the state. And we'd be happy to work with you to make sure that your project's included in that. That's a list that we've shared with the governor's office, and we will be sharing with any legislators that are interested. Just to give you a broad sense on the sewer side, We have about $1.3 billion in 22 counties on our project list now. About a quarter of those are shovel ready. We have actually nearly $500 million in active construction that would be considered eligible today. And then the balance being projects that are still in the planning stage or conceptual stage, but that we think would be ready and could be completed within the time frame required for ARPA. So my last slide is just to provide more resources for you. The Treasury Guidance you should have access to. You may not be as familiar with the Clean Water Fund eligibility, so I've put the link in there for EPA's website, as well as the link to our state non-point source management plan if you're interested in using any funds for the 319. I've got 3 names here. We've got a lot of interest in these funds and want to make sure that we're able to help communities identify appropriate projects. John Mackey, our Assistant Director, will be our point person, but you're also welcome to reach out to Ken Hoffman or myself if you have questions about projects. With that, I'll turn it over to Tim.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, let me start my slide. Hi, everyone. Wayne, thanks for the time. I'm going to go through my presentation because Eric and I tried to coordinate ours so we're not duplicating. My name is Tim Davis. I'm the Division of Drinking Water Director. So some of the questions that came up earlier, I'll try to tackle as well. Again, for the interim final rule makes it clear that projects authorized under the Safe Drinking Water Act State Revolving Fund Program would be allowable uses of ARPA funds. And as Eric already spelled out, they would just need to make sure that they're necessary, high quality, and high priority. I think she showed this same slide. By priorities, it's ensuring compliance with applicable health and environmental safety requirements, address the most serious risks to human health, and assist systems most in need of per household basis according to state affordability criteria. And then there were 2 others that were called out and showing that it addresses climate change and addresses lead in drinking water. So that's one that's specifically tied back to the Safe Drinking Water Act side. The affordability criteria, similar to what the Water Quality Board has, the Drinking Water Board has established affordability and hardship criteria that we already use for state revolving loan funds when determining whether or not to give principal forgiveness and grants versus loans for projects that come through our board. The Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, the purpose of the program is a multifaceted tool for states to use to achieve the public health objectives in the Safe Drinking Water Act. It primarily focuses on protecting public health, ensuring compliance with drinking water standards, and supporting social equity through drinking water affordability assessments. I'm mostly going to focus on the federal programs rather than state programs. Federal programs can be publicly for drinking water SRF funds can be publicly owned, privately owned, nonprofit or non-community systems. Recipients can be municipalities, improvement districts, HOAs, mom and pop systems, church camps, scout camps. However, they all need to be classified as public water systems, and that's defined as a water system that serves at least 25 people per day for at least 60 days a year. So the types of projects that can be funded with SRF funding include design planning, design engineering. There was a question about whether spring development or redevelopment qualify. It would. So sources, wells, springs, storage tanks, treatment facilities, drinking water treatment facilities, transmission, distribution pipelines, water meters, and telemetry, or SCADA, which is supervisory controls data acquisition software and hardware. What would not be eligible under the Drinking Water SRF revolving fund is water development to attract growth. Our SRF funds are designed to rehabilitate, construct, or fix drinking water systems, not to expand them to attract growth. Dams are not eligible, including construction or rehabilitation. Water rights, unless it's part of regionalization. Reservoirs, except for water treatment plant reservoirs. Laboratory fees, O&M costs, and mainly to provide fire protection. So that's the last slide I had, other than I wanted to give you my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about eligibility. I would and put you in touch with staff that, including Michael Grange, who is my technical assistance section supervisor. He oversees the state revolving fund for the drinking water division. And I'll stop there because I'm sure there's other questions. I think there was one other question before I started, Wayne, and that was about a storage tank for a rural water system. And yes, that would qualify for a under our SRF program in the drinking water. So I'll stop sharing there.
Okay, thanks, Tim and Erica. So one question came in from Vicki Bell. Can these funds be shared with private water companies if the town does not own its own culinary system? So I guess the question, okay.
Yeah, so you could, under the SRF program, you could.
And Vicki, I'll just follow that up with, you are able to transfer these funds, but Treasury is expecting you to manage these funds as if you were managing a federal grant, and so you will need to have certain elements in place to transfer these to other entities with your funding. And so we will have more information on that. But before you make that transfer, again, make sure that that you're looking at the Treasury guidance.
Yeah, Wayne, that's a good clarification. I was just speaking to the SRF portion of it. So. There's a question from Danny. Still, is any of this money going to be available in grants or only loan? And so, Danny, I'll take that one. Your ARPA funds are a direct allocation to your community, and they are. You can use those funds however you'd like for. So it's not a loan. It's basically a direct allocation. The state, as Sophia covered earlier, is doing a $50 million kind of grant program that will be competitive. And again, that will be a grant. There will be no repayment on that. Let's see. There were a few questions about pressurized secondary water. We've included responses in the chat box, but Erica, do you just want to touch on that really quickly about the legislature has encouraged over the last couple of years for cities or water providers to add meters to their secondary systems. Oh, I'm sorry, this is about pressurization. So can you touch on that?
Sure. This is one where we'd have to look at the project. Generally, any project that would have a water quality benefit could be argued to be eligible. So if you're pressurizing irrigation water that otherwise was for example, flood irrigation that contributed to nitrate or pesticide or salt pollution into a water body, that could be considered eligible. But we'd have to look at individual specifics. And maybe while I have the microphone real quick, we are putting together a number of questions for EPA with respect to some of these eligibility, maybe not quite clear-cut projects. We're happy to take those to our contacts at EPA and get clarification.
Yeah, Erica, that's a good point. So Treasury guidance is rolling guidance. The rule is currently open for public comment. So we do anticipate that there could be changes and further clarification from Treasury. And so what we don't know today could be clarified in the future. So I don't see any other, I'm just running through the chat box really quick, but it doesn't look like there are any other, yeah, here. So there's another question about, are these ARPA funds considered a grant or matching funds? Will these funds have the same restrictions, regulations, audit as grant money, such as community block grants? So I'll try and tackle that question. These funds are direct allocation to your community from Congress. So they are sending the money for you to use based on the guidance in the law, as well as what Treasury has provided. So it's not a grant, it's not a loan, it is a direct allocation. But there are restrictions on how you can use those, and it's based on the Treasury Guidance. And I'll go ahead and link in the chat box. This is a training that we did on the 151 pages of guidance that Treasury put out about a month ago on allowable uses. And like I said, this is rolling guidance. There will be changes. Treasury is constantly updating the FAQ, the frequently asked questions, and we have been linking those updates in our Friday fax email. So I'd refer you back to those as well to take a look at that.
Wayne?
Yes.
And I think also just for people to have access to the clean water and drinking water SRF eligibilities, which are referenced in the Treasury Guidance, but they are their own long document of their own. So people should make sure they have access to those. And I've been asked this question in case it comes up. Those programs have other requirements like American Iron and Steel and Davis-Bacon. None of those, Treasury has been clear, none of those other requirements are added on to the ARPA funds. So it's just a question of eligibility that you'll be looking at.
Correct. And to clarify what Erica said, that if there is an agency that requires a Davis-Bacon or a NEPA process, those still apply in those instances. But the kind of requirement, if you take on a water or sewer project that is independent of those requirements, you're not obligated to meet those requirements. They are strongly suggested in the Treasury Guidance, but not required. There's one other question from Justin Atkinson. Are water right purchases allowable for secondary water, and what is an example of water quality benefit of water right purchases? I'll throw this to the expert.
We have never used our SRF for a water right purchase. I'd have to look and maybe talk to EPA about whether that would be considered eligible. We are starting some conversations about acquiring water rights through a water bank for water quality benefits, essentially providing dilution in some places that would benefit from that from a water quality perspective. But I don't believe water right purchases would be eligible, but I can check.
And they wouldn't, neither would they be eligible under the drinking water SRF. Great.
Well, we don't have any other questions. I want to again thank our panel. I want to thank Erica and Tim and Sophia and Taylor for your presentations today. They've been very helpful. We will have the recording up on our YouTube. We will link the slides as well on our website and also send those out in our Friday fax. Again, everyone, I know there's still a lot of remaining questions. You have until 2024 to allocate the funds and 2026 to ultimately spend them. So we do have time. And so, you know, I know there will be questions after this, but we have time to work on those and get clarifications for you. So again, thank you, everyone, and have a great day.